All right, it says we're going live, so let's take a look over there. And looking good. Okay, we've already got four people. so so we still got a minute here. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the channel. My name is Rich Charpentier, and I'm the channel host. And I know that the folks popping in right now probably already know that. So good morning, everybody. I hope you've had a really good holiday season so far. We had a pretty restful weekend here, so that was nice. And today we're going to take it kind of casual, so if you got any questions or comments or anything, feel free to pop them into the chat. So when you see me looking over to this side, I'm just checking out the chat to see who's on and also to see if they've dropped any notes. And so today, what are we doing today? Let me see here. Yes, there we go. Why I don't pre-order software anymore. Fool me once. So we're going to talk about some pre-order fiascos that have happened over the past couple of years that I've seen, and one of them actually is going to have something to do with drones and imaging and building our drone businesses. But we're going to start out on, well, more of the fun side. For folks who pre-ordered some of this stuff, it wasn't necessarily on the fun side for them. Hey, good morning, Davenport. How are you doing today? Good to see you. So I'm trying to figure out what temperature I am this morning. It is cold outside. We've got the heat on, but it's kind of this hot, cold thing. So yeah, why I don't pre-order software anymore. Let's jump right into that. So oftentimes companies will put out pre-orders for their software packages to get you interested and excited about the new offerings they have. And sometimes they overpromise and they underdeliver. Good morning, Michael. How are you doing today? I saw your note about the trying out Affinity as a replacement. And if you'd like, we can chat about that a little later this morning too, because I had some thoughts on your comment. So, and for anyone new to the channel, please feel free to leave questions and comments below. I do get back to them. Sometimes it might take a couple of days, depending on how busy we are here. But I do get back to everybody on the comments and questions. And oftentimes, from comments and questions, I come up with show topics. So please feel free to engage here. Also, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Hit that subscribe button, and that helps us grow the viewership. So, okay, one of the big pre-orders that happened a couple of years ago, and yes, I'm guilty. I like video games. And several years ago, we heard about this game called No Man's Sky. Now, maybe you're not into games or anything, but I've got a feeling you probably heard about No Man's Sky. So before they were launching it, this was to be an open-ended universe where you could go from planet to planet, explore things, and that this was going to be procedurally generated, so generated by the software. Now, what you're seeing on screen from No Man's Sky is kind of a representation of where it's at today. It has come a long way since the initial launch of No Man's Sky. But, all right, Michael, good. I'm glad that sounds good. But when No Man's Sky hit the public domain and people had access to it, there was a lot of disappointment. Some people basically finished out the universe and restarted the game in a matter of days. The procedural generation wasn't as good as promised. There were issues about you really couldn't do real multiplayer on it. There was a whole host of issues. And the worst part was the CEO of the company was out giving interviews, and people would ask him, so it's going to just generate whole new worlds and you can play with your friends and you can go do all these things. And the CEO kept saying, yes, that's absolutely right. And in the end, it wasn't absolutely right. There was major problems with trying to do a multiplayer thing with friends or anything. The game was actually much shorter than promised. You had this infinite universe, but it became this repetitive thing from planet to planet. And if you followed along with the overall gameplay and you were trying to get to the center of the galaxy or the universe, you could get through it in a very short amount of time. So this game that was extremely promising had taken all this pre-order money and all this upfront money, and in the end, they really super under-delivered. And I've got a lot of friends who like video games as well. I know it's kind of crazy. Let's see over here. Video games was the first thing that came to mind when you saw today's topic, right? Well, then you know the next one that I'm getting into, and I haven't even tried it. I've got no interest in that type of game. I'm a big space gamer, so yes, I'm a person who's played Eve off and on for years, and Elite Dangerous, which is probably one of the most stunning games I have ever played. You're actually playing in our actual galaxy, the Milky Way, and getting from one place to another is an extreme job. And it is a game with over 1 billion solar systems, and nearly impossible to explore everything. So been a lot of fun. So No Man's Sky absolutely caught my attention. Some of my friends' kids picked it up. Some major disappointment for them, and it was a sad thing to see. Now, I'm not going to just, rake these guys over the coals, because over the years, they have been developing it further. They've added a lot. They've patched a lot. And now they've got a pretty good community of players who do enjoy the game and are getting what they wanted out of it. They've never met the expectations or the promises they made. And so that was a disappointment, but at least the game's come a long way, and the community who's purchased into it, they're enjoying themselves. So that's a great thing. So we can't completely throw them under the bus, but they did go with the overpromise and underdeliver. And this is going to get into drone stuff soon, I promise. So after No Man's Sky, if you're on YouTube at all, you've probably heard about Cyberpunk. So things did not go well with this launch for Cyberpunk. All of these people who did their pre-orders, who were waiting for this game, some were extremely disappointed. Some didn't have as many problems. One of the big things that did occur because of the extreme disappointment and the bugs and the major problems that people were having with gameplay, this was on Sony's PlayStation. And right down here, Xbox One, PlayStation, PC. So the least complaints that I've read about are people playing it on PC. Folks who are doing it on PS4, on the consoles, were having some really bad problems. And, when you're pre-purchasing one of these things, you're parting with a decent amount of money. These games are not cheap anymore. They're also not small. Download times on these things take forever. But the repercussions for what's gone on with Cyberpunk are pretty huge. So the next one over, all I did was a quick search here. Sony pulls Cyberpunk 2077 from PlayStation. So Sony is actually refunding people. This is not something that Sony wants to do. They don't want to be in this. And hey, CJ, I knew I saw something pop up over in the chat window. Good morning to you. Glad to see you here. So Cyberpunk really hit the skids fast. People who were anticipating it, who were excited about it, who were defending it, all of them, if you look through YouTube and you just look up Cyberpunk 2077, you're going to find a lot of bad reviews. You're going to find a lot of complaints. I've seen some videos where they've demonstrated some of the bugs. People just popping up through walls, you trying to get on a motorcycle and it falls through the ground. All sorts of really strange stuff, which makes the gameplay nearly impossible. So all these people who paid their dollars, waited for it to come out, I think some more polishing was in order. And it's not just Sony now. There's been a lot of refund requests all over the place. So, major disappointment for the fans of the development company, and probably a major disappointment for the developers who put, a lot of time and effort in. It seems like this got rushed to market to meet a deadline. And maybe the better policy would have been to tell fans, we need to delay this by a bit. I am a techie drone pilot who is also a gamer. All right, awesome, Michael. I'm glad it's not just me. Actually, doing some recordings this weekend, we're getting the newest class on Post Part 107 completed, and an announcement's going to happen on Friday. And while I was doing some of my videos over the weekend, some of these tail end ones, I actually showed some of the applications on my computer. And I noted to everyone, yes, there's some games on my iMac and on my Windows machine. Can't be helped, it's fun to play occasionally. So all of this is going to lead into what we're talking about next. So if you haven't heard, Luminar AI has launched recently. And Luminar is another photo editing program. And Luminar AI promises a lot of amazing features, intelligent sky replacements and all of these amazing AI filters. And so let me just go ahead and close this one. Now, in one of the classes that I have up online on Udemy talking about basic photo editing for drone pilots, I actually refer to Luminar and did a couple little demos with Luminar because I was actually a big fan of MacFun for years. So that was the company that originated Luminar and also originated Aurora HDR 2019. So I'd been an Aurora user for a while. I'm also I use a couple other things like Photomatix Pro. I even use the mild HDRs in Lightroom. And so I was on board and I drank the Kool-Aid when it came to Luminar a couple years ago. And I had Luminar 2018 and then Luminar 3. And whoops, my phone's beeping. Sorry about that. That was supposed to be on silent mode. Sometimes tech, So I had purchased Luminar 2018 and then that was the lead up to Luminar 3. And one of the big things with Luminar 3 that they were talking about, for a lot of people who were following along with Luminar was going to be the Lightroom killer. And this is back when, like a lot of people who pop by this channel and some of my Patreons and stuff, nobody wants to pay Adobe the subscription fee. We all hate the subscription. And I've gotten over the subscription. But when I hated the subscription, when I was mad at Adobe, I wanted an alternative. I wanted to show them and tell them I don't need your subscriptions. And so I bought into Luminar 2018. And then Luminar 3 was going to be coming with with their libraries, the Luminar libraries. And they did. Let's pull up Luminar 3 here real quick. So they had kind of a library. It wasn't really a library. It's not like Lightroom. Picking things, flagging things, adding extra metadata, sorting on that data. It really wasn't there. So on the left-hand side, so I did some experimentation with their libraries years ago, and I found that the libraries were not going to cut it for me. Taking several thousand frames a year at least, I needed something fast and speedy and easy to find images with. And this just wasn't. I've got no labels on these things. So you can put some stars in. You can do a couple of things. But, my EXIF and IPTC data, nowhere to be found. So it became a disappointment. Now, some of the editing capabilities and some of the tools and some of the filters are pretty good. So I use this occasionally for doing cleanup on individual things, but I'm not using this as a place to manage my library of images. It's just, it doesn't work for that. And once again, I'm talking about Luminar 3. I skipped on Luminar 4 completely, and then Luminar AI has been out and advertising like crazy. I've been getting notifications for months. When I first signed up with Luminar years ago, I signed up to be one of the folks who does referrals for them. So I was going to have links on this YouTube channel and other places. And as I, went through Luminar 3 and found that it really wasn't the Lightroom killer, and a lot of people were talking about it as that, because Luminar has kind of stepped back on that, and that's what I want to talk about. I realized that I did not want to be helping to resell it because what was promised was not delivered, and that was unfortunate. So it definitely wasn't the Lightroom killer. It still isn't the Lightroom killer to this day. If you're managing thousands and thousands of photos, or let's say you're a wedding photographer and you shoot a couple thousand frames on a 12-hour wedding day, getting through and categorizing and flagging and picking your final stuff is so much easier in Lightroom if you get a good Lightroom workflow. So not selling for Adobe either, so I'm not a representative of them. I'm telling you my personal experience. So I was incredibly disappointed with the Luminar libraries. All these filters on the right-hand side, you can really do some cool stuff with it. You can create your own look, so basically doing presets, kind of like what you can do in Lightroom as well. So that they had some, better AI sky enhancer. They say AI a lot, But so far we haven't seen the Terminator show up, so I don't think it's true AI. It is some level of intelligent editing, but still, it's not full on AI. And down on the bottom bar, I can pick some of these filters that they already have set for me, and they've got different filters, lifestyle. So once again, this is not an example of Luminar AI. They say that that's been rebuilt from the ground up, and a lot of the tools on this bar over on this side aren't there anymore, or they've been put in different places. But so I did like some of the tools they had. Like they had an item for aerial, and I'm not gonna do aerial to this luxury apartment here or anything. But so you get the idea. I bought into it, and after a while, I started getting disappointed, and there was a lot of problems with it. And so what the folks over at Skylum did, let me close Luminar. What the folks over at Skylum did was they said to all of us who purchased, they said, we're going to make this Luminar 3 roadmap. So here we got it up on screen, a roadmap. All right. And they were going to be making a roadmap to get us to where they said we were going to be. And so a couple months ago, somebody chimed in on Skylum's website. So I've been following this for a while because it did aggravate me a bit. So I've been keeping up with the hype and the reality ever since what I consider my Luminar 3 fail. And you'll notice I didn't put this in the titles or anything because I didn't want a bunch of controversy on this, and I'm not throwing these guys under the bus. This is their own words. So they had a roadmap out for a while, and it's very difficult to find, but it still does live on the internet. But the things they were supposed to be doing, RAW and JPEG, that you'd be able to do RAW and JPEG versions, same image, more convenient way. Virtual copies, that's a big thing for me in Lightroom so that I can actually do some tweaking of things non-destructively. IPTC edit and sync for your Luminar libraries. This is something that was an epic fail with them. So your EXIF data as well. So having convenient ways to search through a library with thousands and thousands of images is necessary if you're doing professional photography work. Even if you're an amateur and you're shooting all the time, managing all that becomes difficult without a tool or a platform that can help you with it. Quite frankly, one of the other tools I use is called Kino. And Kino is for managing video, but you can manage stills with it too. And I will say Kino did a better job for the stills management than Luminar 3 or Luminar 4 did. So we continue on. Lightroom Migration tool that you'd be able to migrate your Lightroom catalogs to Luminar so that you carry over all of that data. So all of the text keywords that you put in, or the camera type or the lens type, all that stuff would be imported and you could access it easily like Lightroom. So they really did get us built up thinking that this was the Lightroom killer. And it turned out it was not. So this person, Luminar 3 is no longer supported. So the deal with Luminar, they say they're subscription free. So Skylum says this is all subscription free. And that's great. It sounds appealing. Hey, I'm not paying those Adobe subscriptions because I hate them. What they do with each iteration is they say this one is new. So Luminar 4 is new and different than Luminar 3. So Luminar 3 we're going to support for one more year. But if you want some of the latest new stuff, you've got to buy Luminar 4. So what you find yourself in the cycle of doing is purchasing a new version of this software every year. Purchasing a new version or saying subscription, they both actually achieve the same thing. So this whole we're subscription free, not really, because you keep releasing a new one every Christmas season. And they really dug in their heels with Luminar AI, saying that this is completely differentiated from Luminar 4 or Luminar 3, and it's a rebuild from the ground up, and it's got unique tools and things, but it still actually has the same flavor and similarities. But so someone put out a question 3 months ago, hey, remember that Luminar 3 roadmap where you told us without a doubt you were giving this to us? You never delivered. And well, Luminar 3 is not supported anymore. Whoopsie. But this person put up a question, that roadmap, okay? And so they definitely had copied down the roadmap. I think there were a couple more things. And the support folks said, hey, the CEO actually came out on this subject, Please note that after Luminar 4 has been released, we made a promise that we would provide support for Luminar 3 in terms of compatibility approximately for 1 year. Regrettably, at this time, it's not likely Luminar 3 is going to get any more performance updates. Well, it didn't really get any, they had the roadmap and they kept saying they were doing something with it. But the CEO put out a statement, so this is where it gets interesting. Fairly happy with Luminar 4, not so much for AI. Resource hog, yeah, I've been hearing resource hog, and I had some resource hog issues with it too. There's a presentation by Casey on YouTube about software quality. Hardware is far beyond where it was decades ago, but software performance and optimization is far worse. Absolutely. We've seen a lot of development fails lately, and I know the job that those folks do. I used to do database design as well when I was in telecom. I understand, production, not as intimately as these people who do this as their full-time permanent job, but I totally get it. What got me here, though, and I don't know if any of you have seen this, and Michael, since you got into Luminar 4, I don't know what they've left off for you. I know that they've got a roadmap too. And the reason why I say I know they've got a roadmap is because the CEO's response that was linked by their support people actually talks about the Luminar 4 roadmap, because there were some things that they were promising in there. And so this person who was also responded to, not the same person as Luminar 3, I can't find that Luminar 4 roadmap anymore. That's also what happened to Luminar 3 roadmap, except for those of us who made a copy of it. And I do have a copy of it on my computer. So the CEO came out and they got this information that actually bothered me. All right, so this is where it really kind of fell off the rails for me. So CEO came out and was answering the person about the Luminar 4 roadmap, not Luminar 3. So Luminar 3 roadmap, it is where it is. So if you can get some use out of it, great. It's not a full-on photo management package, and I will never call it a full-on photo management package. So CEO says, when we launched Luminar 3, we made a mistake. We said that our goal was to develop a great Lightroom alternative. So they said their goal was to make a Lightroom alternative. So those of us who were buying in to Lightroom 3 were buying in to Lightroom 3 in part because there was a great alternative, or a great alternative coming. We quickly understood that we're not in love with that mission statement. Moreover, that idea to make a subscription-free Lightroom alternative has no value for most artists around the world. Hi, my name is Rich Charpentier, and I'm a photographer and a drone operator, and this Lightroom alternative was interesting to me, so you didn't catch me in the survey. Moreover, the idea so there we go. So our goal is to make something much bigger than just another photo editor, to bring unique solutions to the most challenging problems creative storytellers face. Well, okay, I bought in because of the libraries and the management. That was one of the things that really grabbed me. Let me see here. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to, Luminar 4, from the date, from the launch of AI, you've got a year for whatever updates are coming. Not continuing my Skylum purchases, aka subscriptions, large waste of money. That's been my feeling now. And the thing is, there's some photographers who are behind this, who are involved, who I really admire and I followed for years. And I've never seen some realistic review on some of the things they missed that they promised they were giving us. And so the CEO said, we quickly understood we're not in love with the mission statement of doing that Lightroom replacement. Well, it's a shame because you told us you were going to do it. That's why we paid money. Moreover, that idea has no value for those artists. The world doesn't need a cheap Lightroom. So they're going to make something bigger. There are many photo editing tools out there that look the same and offer those features. Okay. And but so as I read through this, and one other response, I said, so the CEO said, we said we were going to sell you a Jeep. And while we were in development of the Jeep, we realized that we wanted to sell you a Nissan Versa instead of a Jeep. So here's the Nissan Versa, because we think this is what you really want. Well, the whole thing that roped me in when I was a Luminar 2018 user was that Luminar 3 was going to be the Lightroom killer for me. And as you go through the answers from Skylum, the bottom line is they said, you know, we realized that we bit off more than we could chew with this, or we're not interested in this anymore. So we've decided to focus on these other things. Sorry about that. So that pre-buy for me was a really bad pre-buy. So since then, I have followed along with the story, not because I want to throw stones at these folks, but if they do come out with something interesting, I would be on board. The one thing that I'm not going to do is fund them in development. So like I said, I signed up to be an affiliate for Skylum years ago, and I quickly decided not to be an affiliate after some of the disappointments and seeing answers like the answer from the CEO. Hey, you know, we thought about it and now we decided that's not what you really want anyways. And so right at the top of that, I just want to go back. I'll be frank. There was not a single week over last year when the product team didn't discuss IPTC or EXIF. Well, that's cool. I'm glad they had discussions, but they did, for me personally, as a Luminar 3 purchaser, they did say to me that I was going to get this Lightroom killer. Now they're saying, people aren't really interested in that. And so the story carries on now because I've been looking around. And by the way, so I'm still on the affiliate mailing list. So I get all the emails and it swamps my inbox. So I've turned them all into junk mails. But I did watch a couple of their previews months ago. And I'm sorry to say, but I think they spend a lot more time on their marketing than they do on the software development. So you can shoot at me for that one if you'd like to. Let me see. They are now gonna, let me see, not continuing Skylum. Yeah, oh, and the one other thing with it that really bothered me, I actually had commented to the community before. So I do like Aurora HDR for certain things. That's how I found out about Skylum when they were MacFun, was their HDR application that they were selling. And so you've got Luminar, you got Luminar 3, and you've got Aurora HDR. And one of the other things that blew my mind was that I could not export a stack of images from Luminar to Aurora. Aurora that's made by the people who make Luminar. However, in Lightroom, I could take a stack of images and export to the Aurora plugin and make my HDR and bring it back into Lightroom. I could also export from Lightroom to Luminar. So I was like, so Lightroom's got a plugin here and Lightroom's got a plugin here, but Skylum didn't make cross plugins for their own software. So that was my other big disappointment. So in following all this, I was curious to see what's going on. So I actually looked into the Skylum forums and it's not pretty right now. Let me take a look on over here just to make sure I haven't missed anybody else. So there we go. Yep. So don't get me wrong. If you enjoy Luminar 4 or you got Luminar AI and it's working for you, that's awesome. But like I said, I'm just not pre-purchasing anymore because when they started getting a hold of me as an affiliate, that was like end of August, start of September. And so they were having all these videos about, you know, how to put out the launch information, do the initial reviews. And then when people were first allowed to do the initial reviews, if you don't notice on YouTube, you'll get a slew of Luminar reviews all in the same day. That's because all these people were on these video conference calls getting the prep work done to tell us all the same thing. And I started reading and watching a lot of the initial videos and initial comments from folks who were affiliates. And all their posts read the same. I was like, wow, this person cut and pasted what this person said. So, you know, that's where sometimes I get a little unhinged about product reviews online as well. I want to see product reviews on things that have been used for a while. The reviewers that I follow, the people who give me the most information, they'll do an initial, I like this drone, or I like this software, or I like this camera. Then they'll also follow up with it to tell you in use, you know, the practical side of it, and is it working for them in their workflow, and is it working for them in their business? So I'm really a little gun shy as to some of the reviews out there. And also in watching some of the YouTube reviews, there's an angry mob of commenters who are not being nice to the folks doing the reviews because they feel like they've sold out a little bit. But I just wanted to pull up, so they've got the forums, and I went and read DP Review's review on it, and it kind of reads more like a press release than a full-on review because a lot of people are having a lot of problems. So I don't know if any of you guys on channel here have gotten AI, I'd love to know if you've had any issues with it or not, because people have been having installation issues and they've been told to remove their C++ library for this. And they've had some really interesting suggestions. So 13 days ago, but there's been just a ton recently. So when I was thinking about this subject for everybody, I've given up and requested a refund 2 days ago. And this just reads like this: unable to drag image, pleased with initial release. So there are a couple of compliments. And of course, on support forums, you're going to see the bad stuff because people are having issues. But a lot of Windows users can't even install it properly, or they do install it and then it won't launch. Mac users, I've seen less complaints, but they were Mac fun before, after all. So activation of Luminar is not possible for 7 days. Clone stamp unusable. Some people were actually having problems with some image formats and cameras that they weren't having problems with before. So the list goes on and on. And it makes me sad because I actually do want to support developers, and I'm sure you do too, people who are producing something that we're going to want to use. And, some of what Luminar 3 and Luminar 4 and Luminar AI promised are things, yeah, me as a photographer, I do want that. But I just can't fund development. While they were advertising this past fall, they were still in development. So even in their affiliate videos, they weren't showing everything because they didn't have everything to show. So that was disappointing. So we're not going to read through a bunch of these, but you get the idea. So anyways, that's a big part of why I'm not pre-purchasing anymore. If I read some great stuff that AI is the greatest thing in the world, and over the next couple months, people continue to say, yeah, I'm really happy with this and thrilled with it, Rich, I might purchase it. But for the moment, it sounds like a lot of headaches for people. And, you can find this on YouTube, or you can find this, just do a search on Luminar 3's roadmap or Luminar 4's roadmap, because we kind of got shoveled off to the side. So by the way, I did, over the weekend, I've been making some additional videos for my new course over at Teachable. So it's az-drone. .teachable.com if you haven't popped on over there. And Friday we're going to be talking about a new release thing. But in one of my latest videos on some of the tools you can use for editing your drone images, I talked about Affinity Photo, because I've had several people on channel here ask me about Affinity Photo multiple times. Hey, if I'd ever do some tutorials on that. So Black Friday, they had a nice sale. It was $34.99. So I went ahead and I purchased Affinity Photo. And if you look back a couple videos here, you'll see that I actually played with Affinity Photo with some 360s that I was toying with this weekend. And I got to say, I like their live 360 view. I have already found a couple things on Affinity that are going to slow my process down a bit, but that's why I have multiple tools. So if Affinity is good for live editing of 360s, that was worth the $35 right there to me, just to me, because that's going to speed some things up for me. One of the things I found on it was that aligning images, if you're doing time-lapse still photos, for let's say a construction site, there's not an automatic image alignment like the one that Photoshop has. So I could do some alignments manually on Affinity Photo, whereas in Photoshop, I can do this automated alignment between two images taken on different dates, and it really does a nice job. So, but for $35, I do have to say Affinity's got a lot of tools. So I'm going to be playing with it more, and I'll be letting people on channel know what I think of it. Let me take a look on over, make sure I didn't miss anybody else. But yeah, CJ, so I'm playing with Affinity now too. One of the big things, so I'm just going to let you know, when you're doing your drone work, when you're doing your imaging for your drone work, you're going to use different tools. Not every tool has everything there. And, it's just like any other kind of building process or production process. Some tools work better than others. So if Photoshop does these things for me and it speeds up my workflow and lets me get my final product out the door, I'm going to use Photoshop there. If Affinity Photo does a couple of special things that will help me move my workflow along, I'm going to go to it. And so that's why, I'm still an Adobe user and I'm happy to pay the subscription. They've saved me more time with my Lightroom workflow than you could ever imagine. When I first started using Lightroom back in 2007, 2008, somewhere in there, I picked up the one of Scott Kelby's books on Lightroom and on the Lightroom workflow. Maybe it wasn't Scott who did the book, but Kelby training. So while I was doing laundry one day, I opened up and I started reading this Lightroom book that I got for free because I ran a sponsored photo walk here. And so I got the book and I started looking through it because I said, I don't need this thing. I've got my own management style. And just within the first couple of chapters of reading that book, I realized how many hours and days of my personal time I've wasted managing photos the way I did. Lightroom sped up my workflow process so much. That's why I'm such a fan of Lightroom. It really saved me so much time. I mean, months of my time at this point in photo editing for professional jobs that I've done over the years. And so that's why I'm with them. And that's why Luminar 3's catalogs were so disappointing because they didn't speed up my workflow at all. They slowed it down. So anything that's going to slow down my work process is something I need to get out of there and find a different tool for. So if I have to have 2 or 3 editing programs, I'm going to, because the amount of time I can save is perceptible. So there we go. So that's why I do spend on some software packages. So just to be fun, so for those of you who, you haven't seen the video that I did this weekend for the class, but you might as well see, what do we have up here? And yeah, we've got the games too. But of course, all the Adobe stuff up at the top here. Affinity Photo, which has recently been added. Air Server's video stream for when I pop up the my iPhone or my iPad when I'm doing some demos for the class. Cinema Grade for video color editing, for color grading. Color Checker camera calibration tool because I've got one of the Color Checker passports. Color Finale is another grading tool for video. Let's continue on down. Compressor from Apple, so for video as well. And yes, we've got Epic Games and EVE Online here, so thumbs up to the other gamers here on channel. All right, of course, I've got Final Cut Pro, and then we've got the GoPro Quick as well. iMovie, Insta360. By the way, for those of you who are asking, and this is coming up in the class, but asking about you're just getting into video editing, if you're an Apple user, iMovie is probably going to do fine for you. And yes, you can make time-lapse videos with iMovie. I've done it. I show you Instant for doing screen recordings and things, another video converter. Kino, which we'll talk about more again later, but Kino is my video clip management platform, but I can also manage images in it. It's just not an image editor. But if you want a different way to manage your images, Kino is another way, plus you can manage your video. So I'm very pumped about Kino, and I really should do some more videos on that for you. Let me take a look over to make sure I haven't missed anybody else. Okay. Then we've got my Metashape and Metashape Pro. So not really imaging, but that's my modeling software that I use for the 2D and 3D modeling. Of course, Apple Motion and a couple other items, plugins. And then you'll see Piano 2 VR. That's just for testing. I haven't made the full investment in that one yet. I don't think I'm there yet. Photomatix Pro, which is, of course, another HDR program like Aurora HDR. The standard Mac Photos. Then we've got the original Photo Scan that became Metashape. So if you can't tell, there's a lot of imaging stuff on my computer. So I am not afraid to pay vendors for a good and solid product, but I am afraid to pay them upfront before their final launch and before the honest reviews are in. So if you guys would like to learn more about what's going on with Luminar's AI, head on over to their forums or just do a search on YouTube for Luminar AI. You'll find the good, bad, and indifferent. So that's what we wanted to talk about today, and I know that I had caught one other person's attention thinking, yeah, he's going to be talking about video games. And by the way, I haven't ever played Star Citizen, so I can't pick on them, but Star Citizen seems to be the permanent beta test ongoing. Someday, if they get it right, I would love to be a customer there. Let me take a look over. Okay, so CJ, you're playing around with Twin Motion from Epic, and pretty cool to use 3D models created from photogrammetry. So Twin Motion, huh? I'm writing that down right now. I will take a look. So pretty cool to use 3D models created. Also using Blender, yeah, and Davinci Resolve. And I actually do bring up Davinci Resolve in the latest class coming up because, I mean, Davinci Resolve, Mac, Windows, Linux, it's amazing. And it's amazing that on the non-pro version that it's a free package. So if I ever make the decision to swap over from Apple, which I'm still on the fence about, back to Windows, I think DaVinci Resolve is probably going to be my choice. I used to have Premiere as well, and I decided to just go with Final Cut because it was a one-time payment, non-subscription. Hey, look at that! See, even I avoid subscriptions. Let's see over here. Open your Epic Games launcher, and the last tab is Twinmotion. Okay, I will do that after. So, yep, we got that Epic Games. So, all right, everybody. There is going to be another live stream this week on January 1st where we're going to be talking about the newest class from AZ Drone. And I'm also going to be talking about some bundles that we're doing. So we're actually going to take a walk through AZ Drone's Teachable site, and I'm going to tell you about each of the classes and whether or not they're relevant to you. So you know me, I'm not a push seller or anything, but I have been building these classes to help other people developing their businesses as well, just like I'm developing mine. So I think this one's going to be a real interesting one. And the other part of it is that I'm going to be taking student comments very seriously. And if you have other things that you feel will fit in that class, then we're going to do that. So it's going to be a growing course. And it's also the starting point for the rest of my courses. So it's the lead in to why you'd want to buy these other software packages or flight applications or image applications for post-processing. So it's the startup point to give people a realistic view of what it's really going to take, what the barriers to entry are to really starting to develop your small drone business from the ground up. So we'll be talking about that on New Year's Day, and we'll be launching that on New Year's Day. So I hope you pop by for a few, and I hope you find it interesting and useful as well. And with that, we'll stop beating up on Luminar, and I hope you don't think that I was just picking on them. I was so excited for Luminar 3 years ago and the possibility of a Lightroom-like tool that had even more interesting editing possibilities. But that just completely failed. And the biggest part, I just felt it was a slap in the face from Luminar to put out a roadmap that they didn't fulfill. And then they went ahead and launched a new software and another new software. And they said, good luck to you. You're out of your update period. We know that we didn't follow that roadmap and give you what we said in that roadmap. But we don't think you really want that anyways. That's what really aggravated me with the whole experience. But if they come out with a great product at some point in time that will speed up my personal workflow for my jobs, I'll take it. And, you know, Luminar AI right now isn't necessary for what I do for the kind of deliverables I have for my clients, unless it's real estate clients. Most of the folks that I'm dealing with, they're not looking for a super polished, sell it in a real estate magazine kind of thing. And it looks like Luminar AI can do some really nice, pretty edits. That's great. But I can do the same thing in Photoshop and in Lightroom for most of the stuff that my customers and their deliverables require. All right, everyone. I hope you're having a good week and getting some rest from the holidays. So we'll look forward to the new year, and I'll look forward to talking to you again on January 1st. So hope to see you there. In the meantime, have a great start to your week. All right. And we're going to go ahead and end that stream.